Hello, my name is Katrina Kavanagh and I'm from Kindness on Purpose. And this session is all about how we literally have the finish line set for school children, essentially in New South Wales, and even different timeframes in the States. But we have the timeframe set for when we're coming out of this lockdown. And so we're nearly at the finish line. We've got here in New South Wales, we have 1 week left of school, then we have school holidays, and then we have another, I think about 4 weeks left of learning, 4 to 6 weeks left of learning at home, and then we go back into the school. So we're not far away, but it's that last leg of this lockdown, and it can certainly feel like it is extremely onerous because we're doing it under pressure. You are parenting under pressure, you are teaching under pressure, the students are learning under pressure. And I want to acknowledge exactly what kind of pressure is around this time around. So I wanted to start there. I wanted to acknowledge that we have got this time around not only the pressure of COVID and the unknown, but we have the pressure of a lot of emotion that's in the community about having or not having the vaccine. And for the majority of Australians, they have gone ahead and had the vaccine. And some of those have done that very, very willingly. And some of those have done that not because they want to, but because they've felt they've had to. And then we have a whole lot of people in Australia who are afraid of the vaccine and don't want the vaccine and are worried about the vaccine. And so I wanted to really recognise the fear that is around at the moment at this stage in our COVID experience here in Australia, and the pressure that's around, of course, that comes with that fear. Now, what I know about fear is that what happens to the brain from a neuroscience point of view is that when any of us are operating under pressure or under fear, what happens is the way our brain function works is that our amygdala moves our brain function back into the primitive part of our brain, back here, where we go into a state of fight, flight, freeze, or submit, okay? And we're not really working from this front section of our brain, the frontal cortex, which is where all the calm thinking occurs, where the calm learning occurs, and where the best decisions are made. So we have a nation full of people, leaders, the community, individuals, schools, who are really under the pump, and a lot of people are operating, whether they know it or not, from either fully or at least partially this part of their brain, this state of fight, flight, freeze, or submit. And you know you're there because you've got that agitation, or sometimes you might be that sort of heightened state of maybe anxiety symptoms. Some people may be really noticing that they're quite numb. And that often comes when something has gone on and on and on for a long period of time. And so we can feel numb. We can feel a combination of both. And I know, for example, for me, I feel in my tummy some nervousness when I connect in with my body. Sometimes I feel quite heavy in my head. And sometimes I feel a sensation in my chest when I let myself think about what's going to happen in the future for Australia and our children and our people. So this is my natural experience and what's happening to me. And the reason that's happening to me and the reason this is happening to you is because not only is your brain moving from the front part of the brain where all the calm thinking goes on to a state of fight, flight, freeze, or submit, that's also having an impact on our vagal nerve, which runs, as you know or may not know, from the base of our brain, and it runs down, wraps around our vocal cords, goes down through our chest, lung, heart area, down through our tummy, and ends at our colon and reaches out and works very hard to work with a lot of our organs in our body. And our vagal nerve is the nerve that's really instrumental in settling ourselves down or calming ourselves down. So when we're in that heightened state or completely numb state, in a state of hyper or hypoarousal, it's our vagal nerve that actually works with our central nervous system to calm our body down. And when we've been under an enormous amount of stress, which all of us have for such a long time now, our vagal nerve becomes a bit weary and it starts to lose what we call tone or vagal tone. And so when something isn't fit, it means it doesn't work so well. So recently I've been going to the gym and practicing, just started using weights in my exercise. And I'm learning, I kind of knew it already, but I'm learning that, you know, if you want to build muscle and tone in your body, then what you need to be doing is apparently my personal trainer says, no, Katrina, you can't just do this once, okay? She tells me that I have to do this repeatedly in sets. So repetition on a regular basis is actually what will build muscle tone, okay? And so the same as for the vagal nerve. We have our beautiful vagal nerves and that they're a bit weary and they've lost some of their tone. So we need to rebuild some of that vagal tone. And this is what our conversation will be talking about soon. I want to begin, though, by also saying that the most important thing is that if you are an adult in this situation looking after children, so if you're a parent, carer, or grandparent, aunt, uncle, extended family, or a teacher, a SLSO, a teacher's aide, in an executive role, or in any role whatsoever with children, one of the most important things we should do is, before we get to how do we care for the kids to help them get over the finish line, we have to look at how do we care for ourselves. I know, it's a bit of a rude shock. It's actually about how we care for ourselves. And so with that, the most important thing to ask yourself is, how am I doing? And if you happen to be, you know, living with someone, a partner or extended family, maybe you can ask each other that question. How are you really? We recently had Are You OK Day here in Australia, which felt a little bit funny because so many people aren't okay, but still a very good cause. And so it's kind of that question. It's sitting down with yourself, certainly, or with someone that you care about and saying, how are you? How are you really? And saying to yourself, even in a quiet moment, how am I really? Now, from a neuroscience point of view and a psychological point of view, and working with the brain and the body, just sitting and asking that question will give you a bit of an idea. But what I ask people to do is actually work really closely with your body, because remember, we feel our emotions physically. We all get that lump in the throat when we're about to cry. We get that tight sensation or that agonizing pain at a time of grief and loss in our chest. It's a physical sensation. We get butterflies in our tummy, physical sensation when we're nervous. And we can often hold tension in our back, right? And we get that hot, heavy feeling in our head. The body is very much a source of, it tells us how we're really feeling through those physical sensations. And also, therefore, it's a great way to look after our feelings as well by working with the body. So to check in with your body, you need to stop. Okay, so you need to take a little moment where you just pause and you take, say, for example, I don't know, on average, 4 or 5 deep breaths, slow yourself really down, and then you go through what I call a body scan exercise. Many other people refer to it that way too. And that's just, you might close your eyes, okay? You've taken your deep breaths and you sort of notice, how am I feeling in my head? What physical sensations do I have in my head? Do I feel headachy? Do I feel a bit heavy? And what kind of indication do I have that maybe emotionally, you know, I'm really feeling some physical effects of my emotions at this time? Then I'd like you just to focus on your throat and just stop, take a deep breath and just notice, how is my throat physically feeling? Is it feeling tight? Like mine at the moment, is it feeling a bit like you want to clear your throat? Is there a lump in your throat? But we need to stop and slow down to feel that. Do you have a sore throat? Okay. Do you have a sensation emotionally of that lump in your throat? Just notice, okay? And then we move to our chest. This is our body scanning. We're moving to our chest. We're just focusing on our chest. And we're noticing, you know, am I feeling any physical sensations there? Am I feeling kind of maybe some tightness in the chest? Okay. Maybe some aches. And then you notice whether you're feeling that emotional sense that we often get in our chest, that heavy feeling, that ache. And just notice. And then we bring ourselves to our tummy or our stomach, and we're just noticing again, are there any physical sensations? Maybe a little bit of nausea, maybe a little bit of butterflies, maybe we feel completely sick, you know. So what we're doing there is we're just noticing those physical sensations. Taking another deep breath, slowing down, and we're just noticing, do I have any of that emotional heaviness as well, and as well the butterflies. And then we just bring our attention to our back, upper and lower back. And we're just noticing, is there any extra tension there? Particularly also in our shoulders, in our neck. Just noticing. Yep. Okay. And then we're taking a deep breath. Now that's how you actually really check in with yourself. If you notice any physical sensations and you're worried, obviously please go and see your doctor and have a talk to them. However, if you notice that you have some emotional feelings in your body, experiencing them physically, it's a time to really, really find some ways to look after your body. Now, on the Kindness on Purpose website, we will be having not only this video, but a link to a series of steps that you can take to truly look after your feelings. So please go there. That's www. We don't say the W's anymore, do we? So old fashioned. So that's kindnessonpurpose.com. Okay. Have a look there and you'll see some key steps that you can take to work with your body and look after your feelings. But people who know me know that I have some favorites. And all of these are trauma informed and they're about looking after your feelings. So remember, and all of these strategies I'm talking about now can be used for you as adults, or they can be used for your children as well. So those strategies include things like a heat pack and a cool pack, things that you would use to administer first aid. If you had bumped yourself, you'll use a cool pack. The best place to put the cool pack is on the back of the neck, because that gives a direct hit to our vagal nerve. So a cool pack can be on the chest or the tummy as well, but a cool pack, meaning like an ice pack, right? Directly on the back of your neck, chest or tummy for 10 to 15 minutes a day, or leave it there if you want it longer, can do wonders for looking after and really connecting with your vagal nerve and making a difference. A heat pack is a wonderful strategy to use to put on your chest or your tummy. Again, we're accessing the vagal nerve through our chest and tummy there. And that can go a long way to really help the body settle down. And with that, it could be during the day. But my favorite with the heat pack, and this is something I do just about every night myself, is I warm them up in the microwave. And if you don't have a microwave or a heat pack, a water bottle would be great. And I go to bed and I put the heat pack on my chest, and I actually put one on my feet. And I put it there and I really allow the heat to really feel that in my chest, and it's so nurturing. And that I do that to really, really look after my feelings. And when I'm doing these things, I say to myself, I'm doing this to look after my feelings so I can feel okay again. Now, there's actually a neuroscience reason why we do that, and it's about growing a new neurological pathway in our brain. But that's a big, long other story, and I can tell you that another time, okay? But that's a really good thing when you're practicing the heat pack or the cool pack or any of the other strategies listed on our website at kindnessonpurpose.com. It's a wonderful idea to actually always say the words, and it feels a bit silly at times, but it makes a big difference. I'm doing this to look after my feelings so I can feel okay again. So here are some ways that I'm giving you to directly jump straight in and work with our bodies, okay? There are, again, like I said, there's going to be lots of other suggestions. So the first thing is, as the grown-ups, as the adults, it's really about checking in with yourself, okay? And knowing where you are, because if you are, the calmer you can get your body. If you're functioning back here, primitive brain, fight, flight, freeze or submit, and I'm telling you now, I can see nearly a nation of people who are elevated at least to a degree, from either a small amount or a lot to that level, myself included, because of what we're facing with working out what's going on with COVID and immunization, and just getting through that hard slog and feeling like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel for this current section, right? Which is this current lockdown and getting kids back to school. One of the other, and you saw me doing this just now, one of the other really important strategies when we're working at how to look after ourselves and our kids is to break what feels like a monumental experience down into chunks. So we may not know what's going to happen after the kids go back to school. We have to see how our nation goes with COVID. But what we do know is that we can chunk, so it might be a longer journey, but what I want you to do is start to chunk it down into sections, because that makes it more bearable. So our next goal is getting the kids back to school, and everyone adjusting to what that means as we prepare there then for Christmas. Okay, so the first thing is definitely looking after yourselves, right? The next thing is, if you or anyone that you know has lost a job, has had that COVID has impacted on their finances and their business, is unwell, has had COVID, or is afraid of all of the above, then you know that they are people who are extremely affected by this. And I would love you to get this information to them, because it's really important for those people to take special care. So the average person who's going along, and we're juggling our kids with homeschool learning, and we're managing the restrictions, and we're putting our masks on, and we're being very careful, and we're staying within 5 kilometres if that's allowed. And certainly in many areas in Sydney, we've got that curfew between 5 and 9, or 5 and 8, I think it is. So, people are really restricted in what they're doing. We miss our loved ones so dearly. So we're going along with the average kind of experience, but if you know people who have that plus job loss, financial hardship, mental health, physical health issues, okay, then I'd particularly like you to reach out to those people, because they need this information more than anyone. Okay. The other thing then I'd like to talk about in our talk today, in our session, and excuse me, I just have so important to me, what I'm telling you is so important to me. I'm referring to my notes. Let's talk about our kids now. So that's us looking after ourselves, okay? Let's talk about our kids now. Now, I wanted to talk about some things that you might expect. The first thing that you would have already probably noticed is that most kids will react to what's going on by giving you more, or a more exaggerated version of what is their usual approach to stressful events. So if you have a child whose temperament is naturally a bit quieter, okay, then often what we find in these situations is you'll get an exaggerated version of that. So they will be more quiet and more withdrawn and more, reserved, okay? That might explain why someone might I've just joined the dots in presenting something to you about something that might be going on here. Okay. Honestly, I teach this stuff, I talk about this stuff, and I've just had a revelation about my own experience. And there's the difference between Katrina the mum and Katrina the professional. So with that then, and also, so if a child who's usually more exuberant and more of an louder type kid, you might notice them getting louder, okay? But they may not be getting quieter or louder about COVID exactly. They're not going to walk out and say, "Hi, mum and dad, carer, grandparent, auntie, uncle, whoever you are standing in front of me. I'm actually having really heavy feelings about COVID. So I'm going to go in my room and withdraw for a little bit." Or for your externalizing kids that really act out and show you their feelings, and they leave you no doubt about how they're feeling. For those kids, what we know is that they won't come out and say, "The reason I just had this big explosion over the fact that I had to wait another hour before you could get me something, mum, to eat, because you're working at home as well, right? And I've just lost it." The reason why that's happened is because I'm actually feeling extremely elevated about the being at home and home learning. I'm missing my friends. My brain and body is missing the routine of going to school and going to soccer and going to piano lessons or whatever it might be, okay? So it's kind of like they can't articulate that because they don't join the dots, but their body is expressing. So kids always express their distress through their bodies and their behavior. So you'll get more of whichever behavior is their usual way of operating. Now, the other thing that kids can do is, there are some kids who will do the opposite of what their usual is. So they're the exceptions, but they're still very common. But the other thing that you'll find too is you will have kids, particularly the ones that are more likely to withdraw. In our work, I refer to them as that they experience more internalizing symptoms. So they're the kids that will come up and talk more about feeling a bit sick in the tummy, and all of a sudden having a bad headache, and not feeling okay. And of course, again, please go to your doctor and get that reviewed medically. But when you get the feedback from your medical professional that absolutely that child is okay physically, consider that it could be your child expressing their distress through their body, right? So they don't do it through their behavior, but they'll do it through their body. So I want you to be aware of that. So we're expecting kids feeling a bit sicker or reporting symptoms. We're expecting bigger behaviors, bigger reactions over something that, that this is the issue and this is the reaction. So, a bigger reaction that's incongruent with the experience. And we're also going to be noticing that when kids are elevated, okay, that you also are coming at them elevated as well. Okay, so you're feeling emotional dysregulation, they're feeling emotional dysregulation, whatever else is going on in the house. So quite frankly, it's a bit of a perfect recipe for a very stressful time at home. Okay. Now, also, as we come closer to returning to school, which we are, the moment we hit those holidays, we are closer to returning to school. So that brings with it a whole range of topics to be apprehensive, nervous, maybe even anxious about. Okay. And so the things that we would look for with our children is we would think that they are anxious about getting back to their friends. So some kids are really keen. Some kids are really reticent, quite kind of very, very wary of going back to school, particularly if they've got social issues before COVID. Some kids will be feeling, and adults will be feeling, concerned about getting COVID and what will happen to them, and they're no longer in the safety of the cocoon of their home. And so they feel more vulnerable about it. And some kids are just, some kids and teenagers, when I say kids, I mean teenagers, by the way, as well, are not great with change. A lot of us aren't great with change. So you might notice that they might not worry about all those things, or they might worry about those things a little bit, but they actually are worried about the change process of simply going back to school, that a break in routine. Okay. So what do we do about all that? Well, the most important thing is to check in and see how you're going. Like I've said before, check in and see how your kids are going, doing that body scan. You can do that with your kids as well. Just get them to relax. And I don't care if they're running around, but just still speak it to them. Especially the little ones, they're usually flinging their legs all over the floor and rolling around, and you're thinking they're not listening, but don't worry, it's going in. They absorb everything. I know that because I hear my kids when I give them suggestions on how to look after their feelings, they go, "Oh, Mum, but I hear them giving my suggestions to their friends." So it goes in. And so what we want to do is check in with them. So just be saying to your kids, okay, we're going to slow down our breathing if possible. And we're going to look at how your head's feeling and your chest feeling, and your tummy's feeling in your back. And where do you think you might be feeling your heavy feelings? And kids are really good at telling you if it's in their head or their chest or their tummy or their back or their throat. So it's good for you to ask that question. Do you feel a bit heavy at the moment? Where are you feeling heavy? Some kids will say no, particularly the ones that repress their emotions and are more withdrawing. They'll go, no, I'm fine. Fine. And we all know that as adults, we do that, don't we? We're fine. So they may say that, or other kids will just tell you. So checking in with yourself and them as to where they might be, are they having heavy feelings, and like, do they feel a bit heavy without knowing it, and where in their body they might be feeling it, and then applying those strategies that are listed on the website, kindnessonpurpose.com. And then also applying those strategies. And once we've got those things occurring, so we're putting ice packs and heat packs and all the other things I've got listed on there, we're doing things to look after our feelings, we're bringing our brain back, much more back up here into the thinking part of the brain. Once we're there, what we can do is we can have a conversation. Okay, conversations with your kids around the table, or the best time. There's two best times to talk to kids and teenagers is at bedtime, because that's when they're snuggling in and that's when they want to tell you everything, isn't it? Right? And also when you're in the car. So now, obviously, if we're not driving too often, then that wouldn't happen too often, but even a little trip just down to the corner store, and what's wonderful about the car is that you've got them captive. I'm joking. What's wonderful about the car is, yeah, you've got them, you're not looking at, there's particularly for teenagers, you don't have eye contact. So you're both sitting side by side, going somewhere, doing something, and some of the best conversations occur in that setting. Okay, so it's about having the conversations. Now, I want to give you some topics to talk about. The first topic I'd encourage you to talk about is literally to name up the fact that, oh, here we are, going back to school is, X number of weeks away. How we all, what do we think that's going to be like? And then yourself and the adults at the table to role model talking about it. Oh, I'm really worried about, I'm worried about you going back to school because it's going to be a big change. I'm not going to have you around the house all the time. Now, some parents will say, woohoo, that's great. For me, I love them being here. So, and I know you all love them being here, but we all are human and we've only got limits, right? And I'm very lucky to have very quiet, gentle girls. So like it's a bit of a dream for me, a bit of a cruisy experience here. So, when mine go back, it's like, oh, they're going back to school. But to talk about that, it's going to be great for you to go back to school because you'll get to see all your friends again and get to see all your teachers and present that positive story, but also equally talk about, and that's going to it might feel a bit tricky and a bit heavy because we've been here for a long time and I think I'm going to miss you a little bit, and be honest, right? And don't worry about things like, oh, if I say I'm going to miss them, or they'll be, falling into that a little bit. Now, if you say it a lot and make it the prominent, the dominant story, well, yes, that can have an impact. But if you name it up as a statement of fact and then move on to the next statement of fact and the next statement of fact, which is, it's going to be great to see your friends, imagine getting back into the learning environment, that's going to be very good. But you might have a teenager that says, I'm really worried actually because I'm a bit behind. I haven't, kind of done what I need to do, as and I've been doing my best with it, but I found home learning really hard. So that's where you say, yeah, that's really tough and we need to join with you and know that you'll have our support. So the first thing is naming up your actual feelings yourself and encouraging a family conversation about that. Okay. The second thing is, okay, well, we've got these things we're facing. How can we look after ourselves and when can we check in? We should set up a time as a family to check in. Every time we're in the car driving to school of a morning, that's going to be the time we check in, or every night when we get home, we're having dinner, that's going to be the time we check in. And we're going to take extra care at this time to really lean in as a family and look after each other. Okay. So that's a second idea. The third idea is to have a feelings jar. And what I mean by that is it's a little jar in your kitchen, in your main area of your home, and then there's little bits of paper, little, not the sticky notes because they'll get stuck, but something like that size. And what people do is they don't have to necessarily talk about their feelings, but at the end of every day, they might write down where they're feeling heavy or light, okay? If as a family you decide you want to put initials on there, okay, put initials on there. And then either at the end of the day or in a few days' time or at the end of the week, you can open that up as a family and kind of go through it. The other thing is, if you've got kids, especially who are more reserved in how they're feeling, it's great for you to do that and say to the kids, look, I'll be jumping in and checking how many heavies and how many lights we've got, because as a grown up here, I really need to check in and see what's going on. And so as a family, it matters. It also helps your kids to stop and really notice how they're feeling and put that in the jar. Okay, and you can make that either a time when you all do it together, or they can do it in their own time and quietly put it in. Okay, so that's another idea as well. Another really important strategy at this time is to really connect in. And I know, for example, the Kindness on Purpose schools will be working very closely with their school communities. Okay, and I know that the schools will be letting you know what's going to be happening as the kids come back to school, not only on a practical level, but also what are some of the fun activities and the welcoming back activities that they're going to be doing. And it's really good to let your kids know that they're walking back into a school that's absolutely celebrating their return. Okay. So to recap, it's about checking in with yourself first. It's about, and looking after your feelings. It's about noticing the behavioral changes in your kids to sort of work out how they're tracking and going. And then it's about doing those very simple things like having that, looking after feelings, number one. Number two, having conversations with your children where you role model talking about your own feelings. It's okay, for example, if you get sad and distressed, the kids see that. It's okay for children to see you and teenagers to see you express emotion. Okay, so if you're sad and you're crying, if you have a moment where you're frustrated and angry, all of those, or you're confused or you're afraid, all of those emotions, whilst as parents and carers, our natural instinct is to not share that with our kids. All of those feelings are really, really important to share with kids and for them to see you expressing them. Because guess what that does? That gives them permission to have feelings as well. Otherwise, they think that we're not meant to have them. If we have them, we're not meant to express them. So by expressing them, you know, in a healthy way, or even sometimes if you might, you know, kind of like get really cranky and lose it a little bit, you know, or get really sad and deeply weep, what you're showing is you're then role modeling to your kids that, yes, I can feel heavy. You know what? I'm going to get myself a heat pack. I'm going to get myself a cool pack. I'm going to start gargling. These are all trauma-informed strategies. I'm going to, you know, sit down and very slowly sip a warm cup of tea. I'm going to do something creative. I'm going to do, you know, big stretches. I'm going to use the press on the wall technique that's on the website. I'm going to do all these things to look after my feelings, okay? And say to your kids, you know, I was really upset and I looked after my feelings. And, you know, Mum, I'm okay. I got through it. I'm okay. Because that's how we do it in our family. We have feelings, we look after them, and then we get ourselves to a place of being okay. So we're looking after our feelings, and then we're having those big conversations, as I said, with our kids and with ourselves and with our partners and loved ones about what we're worried about, what we're looking forward to. And then we've got the schools doing great things, and we're getting the information from the schools about what they're doing to welcome. And then we've got the feelings jar. Don't remember that. It's a really useful strategy. And last but not least, it's really important for your family to create a vision of how your post lockdown life, and ideally post-COVID life, is going to be. So what are your plans? What are your wants? What are your dreams? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go for a picnic? Where do you want to go for a weekend away? Where do you want to go for a holiday? How often do you want to be visiting families and relatives again? And I think it's a great idea to brainstorm that, put that on a beautiful poster with words or pictures to represent that, pop it up in a central place in the family home to remind your kids and remind yourself that we're looking at the end goal. We're getting through this latest lockdown, and we will be able to experience those wonderful experiences that bring joy to our heart again. And then maybe as a family, you can sit down and say, what do we need for our camping trip we're going to go on? Well, Mum and Dad better get those supplies ready. And we start, if you have financial resources available, you can start to order in those things and build that excitement with the kids. Look, the tent's arrived. Woo! And so, you know, look, we're going to go and visit Grandma. Let's get a gift for her, you know. And so you might jump online and get a gift, or you might say to your kids, and who can beat the homemade gifts, the homemade cards? Let's start making cards. I know you've already making cards for Grandma, right, or Auntie, whoever, or Uncle Bob or whatever. And we've been sending them, but let's make a special card for when we physically see her again. Let's make a special gift for when we physically see them again. So you're starting to bring your children along with you in this journey, and understanding that you are absolutely going to cross the finish line, and you are going to see school friends, teachers, our beautiful loved ones, and we're going to have experiences again. So I hope these ideas have been helpful. If you want any more information, again, you can contact me via the Kindness on Purpose Facebook page. Also, you can contact me via the website, kindnessonpurpose.com. And also you can, they're the main ways. They're the main ways. Or contact your Kindness on Purpose school and ask them to contact me if you need my assistance. I'm Katrina Kavanagh. I'm the Chief Empathy Officer of Kindness on Purpose, and it's been a delight to be here and be of service to the adults who are looking after themselves and looking after the children as we get our eye on the prize and finish this final lockdown. Take care. Bye-bye.